individual interviews through me. You're great.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks for this opportunity for this press conference. So yes, as Andrew mentioned, I've received a new appointment as Archbishop of Vancouver, succeeding my brother bishop, Archbishop Miller. The decision by the Holy Father was precipitated by his decision to accept the resignation of Archbishop Miller as Archbishop of Vancouver and allow him very, very generously. Archbishop Miller has stayed about 3 years, I think, after normal retirement age, and now the resignation has been accepted by my appointment as Archbishop of Vancouver. So certainly grateful to the Holy Father for the confidence in me that this represents. But I wanted to have this opportunity, and I'm grateful for the press conference, to state publicly how grateful I am to the Archdiocese of Edmonton, first of all. Andrew mentioned I've been the Archbishop here for nearly 18 years, and in those 18 years we've come through a lot together. In the last number of years particularly, we endured together the pandemic, COVID pandemic, we all remember that. Then we welcomed the Holy Father with all the complications that are involved in that. In the last little while, we entered into the process of synodality called for the whole church by Pope Francis, and out of that intense and devoted listening process, we have fashioned some new pastoral priorities to carry the Archdiocese into the future. It has been a blessing beyond words, I'd have to say, really, to have been the shepherd here in the Archdiocese, to see firsthand and to work firsthand with very, very devoted disciples of Jesus Christ. The collaboration, the competence, the commitment of the clergy, the consecrated women and men, the lay faithful, has been for me extraordinarily edifying. And we don't know yet who the next Archbishop will be. They have to start the consultation process to determine that. But whoever it is coming into a beautiful, beautiful portion of the Lord's vineyard. And he will be surrounded, as I was surrounded from the very outset, by a community of very faithful, competent disciples. So I'm deeply grateful to the Archdiocese here. I understand, too, that we have people joining us today from Vancouver. So hello to you. I'm looking forward to getting out to meet you, to get a sense of the Archdiocese. It will be entirely new to me. Looking for ways in which we're able to work together and really engage together, how we're going to proclaim the gospel anew and engage the mission of the church. Archbishop Miller is leaving me very, very big shoes to fill. I'll do my best. And all the great work that he has and you have together with him put in place, we'll carry that forward now in ways that, well, the Lord will determine for us all. So I'm looking forward to that, and I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude and my esteem to Archbishop Miller for the great leadership and the great service that he's given to the Archdiocese of Vancouver for these many years. And I guess the final comment I'd want to make, because it's on the minds of everybody, is just some comments about the Holy Father, Pope Francis. Like everybody else, we'll get updates through the news as to how he is doing. So we understand the situation is critical. As of last evening, though, they were speaking of a slight improvement, so that's always giving us a reason for encouragement. But what I have found beautiful over the last little while is how the whole world has rallied in prayer for Pope Francis. We can understand that in a couple of ways. I mean, he's our Pope, he's the head of the church, he's our father, and when a loved one is ill, you just rally, you surround and you pray. Pray for God's will, pray that the Lord lead him to recovery, and all these prayers that are going up. It's just been so moving to see how beloved Pope Francis is to the world, and having that manifest in this great outpouring of prayer. So as we are giving particular attention to these two appointments that are announced today, let's not let that overshadow in any way the need that we all have now to be focusing on the needs of the Holy Father and through him the universal church, and to pray for him. Okay, Andrew, I think that's it. If you want to carry it from here. I don't know if there's any questions or if you want some individual interviews afterwards, however you'd like to do that.
A question? If you could just introduce yourself, the news outlet that you're with.
Hi.
Speaking of Pope Francis, what was your direct experience with him over the years, and just speak also to his legacy and mission?
Yeah, thank you for that. So for those that didn't pick up the question, she was asking about my own personal experience of Pope Francis, his legacy here in Edmonton, and so on. Through the years, I had had occasion to meet the Holy Father in Rome and in his office for a variety of different occasions. But the relationship really did deepen and intensify, I'd have to say, in the context of our Indigenous relationships that we have here in Canada. So you remember, for example, we had the delegation of Indigenous representatives that went to Rome in early 2022, and I was one of a few bishops privileged enough to accompany them. And I saw firsthand how the Holy Father connected with them and very deeply and openly to all that they had to share with him. And it was there in Rome that he made a promise to them to come to this country, to be on their land, because he knew just how important it was for them, yes, to hear from him in Rome, but also to hear from him in their own territory. And in a year when he was canceling one international trip after another because of his poor health, he remained faithful to that promise. And in spite of his debilitating condition, and I saw firsthand that he was in constant pain all the time he was here, he still insisted in coming to Canada to be with the Indigenous peoples. And so that gave me a chance to see even more closely the heart of the man. Pope Francis wears his heart on his sleeve, even to the public, even before mass audiences. But to see him open his heart, open his mind to the Indigenous was really, I think, an example to us all, and particularly an example to me as a bishop as to how we go forward in the church in opening our hearts to those in need, those who are hurting in any way, those who are suffering, and find new ways that suited to their situation that they can hear the gospel and find hope in it. As to legacy, yes, I think he will be remembered for that above all. When in fact, that was the sole reason he came to Canada. Often with a papal visit, the Pope will visit every nook and cranny of a country, all aspects of the church. He said, no, I'm coming for the Indigenous. And I remember that our own Catholic people were saying to me often, well, we'd love to go see Pope Francis, but he's here for the Indigenous. And so they allowed that to happen. So that legacy of, how would I put it, openness, receptivity, sensitivity to the needs of any who are suffering in any way, that's, I think, probably the most important legacy and lasting legacy that the Pope will have for us.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Other questions?
Hi, Galen with CTV. What are you going to miss most about your time in Edmonton?
The people. We've had many challenges, and I'm sure there's going to be many challenges in Vancouver. That's typical of any diocese. But what I have found here is, I mentioned this in the opening remarks, a community of very faithful disciples, committed. And whenever there was a challenge that faced us, we always said, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with it together? And I've just been so edified by that expression of individual and communal faith. And that's something that's going to, I think, buoy me and carry me forward into the future. So these good, collaborative, both professional and personal relationships that I've been able to foster over, nearly 18 years, that's what I'll miss the most.
Is there anything you sort of highlight as one of your biggest accomplishments in the past 18 years?
Oh, well, in this life, I don't speak of personal accomplishments. Anything that's accomplished is accomplished by the Lord, right? So working in and through us. So I would not claim to have any accomplishment at all in that context. What I am very grateful to God for is, well, many things, but again, to your question about the papal visit, the experience here of the Pope, And the opportunity that that gave me and that gave all of us to draw closer to the Indigenous peoples of the area. I've really grown to love them and have a deep respect for their culture, for their tradition, and for their wisdom, and their openness to engage with me and their openness to engage with the church. That has been, I think, a beautiful moment for me that I will treasure for a long time.
Vancouver weather, you looking forward to that?
Well, I grew up in Halifax, so I know a little bit about how the ocean can affect the weather, and I know a little bit about a lot of rain. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Any additional questions?
Sorry, I came in a little late. Just tell us what you're thinking regarding the Pope right now. How concerned are you and everybody here in Edmonton?
Well, of course, I'm not a doctor, and I don't know how to read professionally what's coming out of the Vatican. I've noticed that their reports are beautifully transparent and open. You know, they just keep us apprised of all that's happening. Because he is our beloved Father in the Church, as the Holy Father, then of course we're all concerned for his well-being and for his health. And perhaps you missed it, but I was mentioning earlier about how beautiful it is to see the whole world rallying around the Pope right now. They're there not just in St. Peter's Square, and some have made special trips to Rome to be close to the Pope and to pray for him, but through the media we can see how the prayer is happening around the globe, literally, for the Holy Father. So we know just that what the media tells us and what the Vatican reports convey, but that's enough for us really to hold the Pope in our prayers and really pray that, well, first, as always, God's will be done, and we hope that God's will include leading him to a full recovery.
Lincoln, did you have a question?
Yeah, what are your, since 2007, what are some highlights of your time here in Edmonton?
Highlights, well, there have been many. I think of a number of pastoral outreach initiatives that we undertook. So, for example, this was early on in the time that I was here, we undertook the Nothing More Beautiful initiative. That was a 5-year catechetical evangelical series. Then from there, we undertook the series called Every Life Matters, where we wanted to highlight for everybody the teaching of the Church on end-of-life issues and underscore the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. Then, now it's hard to speak of it as a highlight. We had COVID, we had the pandemic. But the highlight in that for me has to be the way the people rallied, right? This was a challenge that nobody really understood. How do we get through this? But there was always that question, how are we going to get through this together? Right? How are we going to work out our guidelines? How are we going to work out what's best to keep people safe as we continue to celebrate our faith and so on? Then we moved right from that into deepening relationships with our Indigenous peoples, including the delegation to Rome and then the Pope visiting here. That's a highlight par excellence, I'd have to say. And then finally, the Pope had called the whole Church to synodal listening, and we entered into that quite deliberately, I would say, and intensely here in the Archdiocese. You remember we had about 350 listening sessions, 4,000 different responses came to us that enabled us to fashion our pastoral priorities for the future. So that demonstrates very well, it seems to me, the depth of faith, the depth of commitment that exists here among the people of God in the Archdiocese.
And Your Grace, I know the news is still fresh, but if you could speak generally about the transition. I know details are still being planned.
Sure. Okay, so the way it works is that from the time of formal confirmation, that is to say the announcement from the Holy See, then we enter into a period of transition, and that usually takes 2 to 3 months to allow to happen all that needs to happen. So I anticipate that I will take formal, we say it, canonical possession of the Archdiocese of Vancouver in late May. As of now, and until I leave the Archdiocese, I'm no longer the Archbishop here, but the Archdiocesan Administrator. Things will carry on as they have, but I do so with a different title. And so we'll carry on. We'll be celebrating now the Lenten season, going into the Easter season. And these are high holy times of the church that need to have all the focus that they deserve. So we don't want to be occupying that time with transition, moves, installations, and so on. So we'll let all that happen after Easter. Technically, that means that I will probably leave here early May. So all of this is yet to be finalized for a transition towards installation towards the end of May. And again, as an act of generosity, Archbishop Miller has agreed until I take formal possession to continue to serve as the apostolic administrator there in Vancouver. So we're very grateful to him for that.
Additional questions?
I kind of want to ask about like how the process was communicating with the Vatican, because it's such an ancient organization. Like, how did you find out about this? Did you like did someone call you? Did someone email you?
Yeah, it happens with a phone call, and usually when it happens, it's like a bolt from the blue. So that happened for me Friday morning. And the way it works, the Holy See works through the Pope's representative in a country, the Apostolic Nuncio. In secular terms, his ambassador. And whenever there's a need for a bishop, he'll initiate a process of consultation of bishops, priests, lay people. A series of names is submitted to the Vatican, which is further discerned and then presented to the Pope. The Pope says yes or no. If the Pope says yes, then the nuncio is informed by the Holy See, and the nuncio in turn will call the individual to say that the nomination has taken place. So to my great surprise, that happened on Friday morning. I was told that I was named the Archbishop of Vancouver. And the Holy See also asked that the announcement take place as quickly as possible. And so we were able to arrange that. We arranged that to take place today.
Over here.
You know, at the end of the day, it's a very prestigious job. But like any job, it's competitive, I'm assuming, especially in this case when you're competing with people around the world. So how big is that for you? I mean, what do you think set you apart to get this amazing position, and how did that make you feel?
Well, first of all, I probably have the same question. Why? And I think that question occupied my mind for quite a few days after I had that call. But just to be clear, this is, we don't enter into competition for positions like this. We don't apply for the job, right? It's discerned by others in the name of the Pope, and then the Pope informs one. So we trust that the Holy Spirit is working through this process to have the person in a particular place at the particular time it is needed with the particular gifts that the Lord gives for the accomplishment of that purpose. I was saying to the members of the pastoral staff here today earlier, over the last couple of days I was thinking of the passage from the Acts of the Apostles when Philip was just sort of lifted up and carried from spot to spot to spot by the Holy Spirit, not knowing where he'd be landing, what he'd be saying, and so on. It's a good symbol, I think, of the life of any clergy, particularly the life of a bishop. You sign up to serve, and then leave it to the Lord, working through the church to determine how that will unfold. So in the Christian life, Jesus decides, and I don't. And I'm not always going to know why the Lord, working through the church, makes this particular decision. I just have to trust and say yes, and have confidence that He'll give me all the gifts that I need.
Additional questions?
Last question. Do you have a message for the next Archbishop of Edmonton?
You are so blessed. Whoever the next Archbishop of Edmonton is, he will be so blessed to come here to work with the extraordinary team extraordinary team that's here at the Pastoral Center, to work with the clergy, the priests and deacons, very competent, very good, devoted men that I've had a great privilege to work with over the last number of years. And I find just generally the lay faithful, if you put a challenge in front of them, they rally. How are we going to do this? And we've got very competent, very dedicated people leading we've got a wide range of Catholic institutions here in the Archdiocese, led by very competent, devoted disciples of the Lord. So whoever steps into this Archdiocese is stepping into a wonderful one, and will be surrounded by a lot of support and a lot of prayer and great commitment and competence.
Additional questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming. That concludes our press conference. As mentioned, there is an availability afterwards and a chance to schedule individual interviews also. So thank you very much.
Thank you.